The legislature is back in session. Good morning, colleagues. When we left last night, we were with Senator Teitigui on a proposed amendment. So, Senator Teitigui, you have the floor, ma'am.
Sijus Masing, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you, and good morning to my colleagues, and most especially, good morning to the people of Guam who's taken the time to listen what goes on here at the legislature, the People's House. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for allowing me to stand and speak on Bill 254-38. Mr. Speaker, as outlined in the public hearing, Bill 52-38 seeks to align cannabis cultivation standards with general agricultural practices on Guam by removing certain restrictions that many farmers have said are overly burdensome and inconsistent with how other crops are grown. These concerns are not new. We have heard them over the years, from the rulemaking process to multiple hearings where stakeholders constantly point out that cannabis cultivators were being held at a higher standard than other agricultural producers. So I want to make it clear that I totally support the intent of this bill. We all want to see this industry move forward in a way that creates opportunity for our local farmers, supports small businesses, and contributes to Guam economic diversification. And I want to highlight that we've recently started to see some movement in that direction. Through the roundtable discussion I initiated prior to this bill being heard and in connection with earlier efforts like Bill 245-38, we brought agencies and stakeholders back to the table to have honest conversations about what is working and what is not. Because of that renewed engagement, we are finally seeing progress, including the licensing of 2 cultivators. This is meaningful. It shows that when we collaborate and stay focused, we can move, we can move this industry forward. With that said, I do want to note one concern. There was no testimony from the Department of Agriculture or the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, both of which will play important roles how this bill is implemented. For the measure that directly impacts agriculture standards and environmental practices, their input would have been meaningful in fully informing this body. That said, I do take some comfort in knowing that at least 2 cultivators have already worked through Guam's EPA process, which helps to ensure that operations are being set up to mitigate potential environmental hazards. This is an important safeguard, and it enforces the importance of continued collaboration with our regulatory agency as this industry develops. I believe we all want the same outcome: a cannabis industry that is functional, responsible, and sustainable. So at this time, Mr. Speaker, I proffer an amendment onto the floor. I believe my colleagues should have it on their tables. So, Mr. Speaker, if I may move for an amendment on line 4, page 4. Okay, if I may continue. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That being said, I know you can actually see the double line. That's what I'm making the amendment to the bill, is the double line. It's kind of hard to see. You got to squint in or use your, 3.5 eyeglasses to see it, but it's a double strike, and I'll show you where that is. So it's in section 9401 under policy, letter A. The Department of Agriculture shall duly exercise the power invested in as regulatory agency in the cultivation, production, and then waste management and, hold on, my thing is here. Hold on one sec. Okay, thank you. I don't know, I must be coming down with something, Mr. Speaker. Management, destruction of cannabis in the territory of Guam for which the use and or end product results in, and this is where it's strucken out. Either is strucken out, okay? And then recreational, commercial, and then after that, and or medicinal is also strucken out. That's the amendment there. Then going further down, application, and then you'll go a commercial, and then you'll see the other struck out, and or medicinal. That is strucken out. And that's the two amendments. So we're striking out either, and then striking at and or medicinal, and again and or medicinal. And the reason why we're doing this, colleagues, it's a very simple fix here. In Title 3, Chapter 9, Article 4, this area is strictly for commercial cannabis. This does not address the medical cannabis. And Mr. Speaker, if I may bring up a situation where you actually brought this to fruition to the body, that there is no medicinal. It's called medical cannabis. So we know that moving forward, it's not medicinal, it's medical cannabis. That being said, we're just striking that out because actually the area in which references medical cannabis falls under 10 GCA Chapter 12, Article 25. And under rules, it's 26 Guard Division 1, Chapter 11. So that's why we're striking that section out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the amendment, is there any colleague wishing to speak on the amendment? On the amendment, no colleagues wishing to speak. You can close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, this amendment is very simple. The bill references medicinal cannabis, which is a term used in Guam, not used in Guam law. It's called medical cannabis. And the Department of Agriculture has no authority over medical cannabis under Guam law and has testified by the Department of, which was testified by the Department of Public Health and Social Services. So to avoid confusion and potential jurisdictional concerns, I prepared this simple floor amendment to strike reference to medical cannabis in Section 2 of this bill, which outlines the authority of the Department of Agriculture under these rules guiding adult use cannabis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's my closing.
Are there any objections to the amendment? No objections to the amendment, so ordered. You still have the floor.
I yield my time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the bill as amended, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill as amended? On the bill as amended? Going once? Okay. Senator Salas Matsanandi, you want to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, Bill 254-38 is about finishing what we started. The people of Guam made their voices clear. This legislature took action to legalize cannabis. Now it's our responsibility to make sure those decisions actually work, not just on paper, but in practice. This bill is common sense correction. It removes unnecessary barriers, empowers our local farmers, and gives this long-delayed industry a real chance to succeed. More importantly, this bill is the result of real collaboration with our community. I want to recognize the industry experts, farmers, and cultivators who helped shape this measure, led by the policy team, or my policy team, of John Moffness and Michelson Nicholas. I also extend my sincere gratitude to the members of the Cannabis Working Group who stepped forward to be part of the solution. Ranking Member Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, John Savaris, David Cruz, Ed Santos, Brandon Vera, Sean Salas, Robert De Los Reyes, Matt Fernandez, Melker Manabusin, and Steve Roberto. Their expertise, their time, and their willingness to engage have helped move this conversation forward in a meaningful way. I'd also like to thank the co-sponsors of this bill, Senators Sean Gumatautau, Will Parkinson, Joe San Augustine, Shelley Calvo, Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, Vince Borja, and Vice Speaker Tony Atta. Today, we have an opportunity to correct course, to support our farmers, to deliver on promises made to patients, and to create real economic opportunity for our people. And most importantly, to show that when government sees something is not working, we are willing to fix it. I respectfully ask for your support on Bill 254-38, Sidzuas Maasi, and I'd like to move it to the third reading file.
On the motion to move Bill 254-38 COR as amended on the floor to the third reading file, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. We'll go back to Bill 246-38 COR. Senator Taitigui, ma'am, you are recognized.
Sidzuas Maasi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to make a motion to accept Bill 246-38 COR as substituted onto the session floor, which is an act to amend 13031 of Chapter 1, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, and to add the Guam Cancer Trust Fund to the list of entities and instrumentalities exempt from the Bureau of Budget and Management Research Allotment Release Control to ensure timely and consistent access to appropriated funds for the Guam Cancer Care Program and services. The reason for this substitution is to add a new Section 3 to the bill and to renumber the current Section 3 and 4. This new section would clarify that the fully monthly allotment to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund must be released regardless of any variations between the adopted revenues and projected unobligated general fund revenues reflected to the Consolidated Revenue Expenditure Report. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, there's a move to accept substituted version number for Bill 246-38 COR. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, bill substituted. So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, when you want to move substitute bill to the third?
Yes, this is okay.
Okay, you can move. It's moved to the third.
Okay.
You can read.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, thank you for supporting the motion to adopt the substituted bill. And I wanted to explain the bill as it now stands before the body and the importance of the additional section that has been incorporated. Colleagues, this bill addresses a problem that is not theoretical. It is operational. Over the years, even when the legislature appropriated funding for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, the timing of allotment releases has not always been predicated upon the funds. Funds have sometimes been released sporadically or later in the fiscal year, which in turn delayed grant cycles, reimbursements to nonprofit organizations, and the services that cancer patients rely on. I remember one year, throughout the whole year from October, the beginning of the fiscal year, they did not receive any of their allotment until August of the following year. There were other situations and circumstances where, in fact, this term, this year, from October until January, the end of January, which they've been appropriated $4 million, they've only received $48,000. This needs to stop. Organizations providing direct patient support have testified that they were sometimes required to upfront funds while waiting months for their reimbursements. And these are individuals who are already going through the task of fighting a deadly disease. These are organizations that have been doing everything they can to help our residents pay for transportation, for treatment, lodging, while receiving care off island, and even sometimes on island, Mr. Speaker. These are patients who pay close to $20,000 for a single pill to help them survive. This is about life or death. This is about our own community who do not get a funding that this body requests the government, that was a Freudian slip, to release this funding to something so beyond words, just so heartfelt and drenching for our people. I bet every single one of you in this body today has somebody close or even a family member or a close friend who's had cancer. The only good news is that some of them have survived because they got the treatment in time. They were there in time, and that's what this body is going to do with this legislation, that no matter what, that allotment will get to them on time, and BBMR and the administration will have no authority to hold it back. We have nonprofit organizations out there every day listening to the stories of our community. And then they come to us and share those heart-wrenching stories. Mr. Speaker, yourself, Make-A-Wish Foundation, the majority of those are children with cancer. This is an opportunity for us to do something about it, to not keep speaking about it, but actually putting your vote to the test and voting on this bill. As I mentioned, organizations have provided direct support, whether it's off-island or on-island, for medical cost. Bill 246 addresses the operational issues by placing the Guam Trust Fund among the entities that are exempt from allotment release control, so that funds can be drawn down according to an established schedule and used when they are needed. Colleagues, this legislation builds upon the work we did last year when we enacted Public Law 38-62, which secured a minimum funding for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund through the Healthy Futures Funds. That law stabilized the amount of funding. Bill 246 stabilizes the release of those funds. It's very difficult sometimes to stand up here and continue to fight the fight for cancer, because it has hit me personally, and I know the hardship that the people have. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to close at this point and just have any questions my colleagues might have, and then I'll save the rest for my closing. It's kind of hitting hard right now. So please, colleagues, it's a very simple legislation. It confirms our intentions to really help our community, those suffering from cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. On bill number 246-38, as substituted on the floor. Gentleman from Tamuning, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I rise in strong support, Mr. Speaker, of Bill 246 or CRR 38-CRR, because at its core, Mr. Speaker, this measure is about people, our families, our neighbors, and the countless individuals on Guam who are fighting for their lives. Personally as well, I lost both my parents to cancer, Mr. Speaker. Cancer does not discriminate. It does not care who you are, where you come from, how prepared you think you might be. Far too many of our families, Mr. Speaker, in our community have been impacted by this disease. For many of us, this is not abstract. It is personal. And when cancer strikes, it does not wait. We've heard powerful testimony that underscores exactly why this bill matters. One family in a span of just 5 days had to come up with nearly $700,000 to access life-saving care. Mr. Speaker, think about that. No family should have to face that kind of financial burden. On that kind of timeline, of course, while also dealing with the emotional weight of the cancer diagnosis. The reality is simple, Mr. Speaker. Cancer is expensive. Treatment, travel, medication, support services, it adds up quickly. And for Guam, where many patients must seek care off-island, the costs and urgency are even greater, Mr. Speaker. That is why the Guam Cancer Trust Fund is so critical. It provides real, tangible support, helping cover treatment, travel, and essential services for patients and their families. But what we have seen time and time again is that delays in releasing already appropriated funds create unnecessary barriers. That's why Bill 24638 CRR addresses this directly by removing the bureaucratic delays and ensuring that funds are released in a timely and predictable manner. Because when it comes to cancer, Mr. Speaker, timing is everything. Delays in funding can mean delays in care, and delays in care can mean the difference between life and death. We have also heard from community partners and nonprofits who have stepped up to fill these gaps, often fronting costs themselves just to make sure patients get the care they need. This is not a sustainable system. We should not be relying on stopgap solutions when we already have the funds appropriated for this exact purpose, Mr. Speaker. This bill is about cutting red tape. It's about empowering our community stakeholders. And most importantly, it's about saving lives. At the end of the day, this is not just a policy decision. It's a moral one. And if we have the ability to remove barriers, to get resources where they are needed faster, and to support families in their most difficult moments, then we have the responsibility to act. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support, of course, Bill 24638 SCOR. And with that, to Zudas Masi, and again, good morning to everyone in this hall, as well as the folks, our people of Guam who are watching this session this morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir. On the bill 246-38 COR, substituted gentleman from Televofu. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to offer these brief comments regarding Bill 246 as substituted. Mr. Speaker, this policy proposal builds on our shared desire to strengthen cancer care for our families. As was mentioned by the author, last year this body approved and the executive signed into law Public Law 38-62 by the same sponsor for this particular measure, mandating that at least 15% of the Healthy Futures Fund, or a minimum of $4 million, be allocated to support cancer prevention and treatment services. Mr. Speaker, consistent with my position on this and the earlier measure prioritizing taxpayer resources for critical medical care and support for our cancer patients and their respective families, I must reiterate the importance of ensuring that resources must be invested in direct patient care and services. As we learned through OPA report number 19-08 on the Guam Cancer Trust Fund that was issued back in December of 2019, which found that between 2015 and 2019, the fund paid a single nonprofit their organization's personnel costs of $2.4 million, or 56% of the total project costs awarded. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, we as policymakers must ensure that these nonprofits and other entities which are providing resources to assist our cancer patients and their families remain responsible stewards of taxpayer funds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the bill, as substituted, on the bill, any other senator wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, I just wanted to stand in support of this bill. We are exempting by this bill the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, which is managed through the University of Guam's, and allowing what is allotted to them in our budget to be released to them on a monthly basis regularly, so that they don't wait, as the sponsor indicated, so that they don't wait months and months for that money, so that they can provide reliable services if we are going to rely on these nonprofits to provide these services. These are gaps in the government of Guam's services that we provide, and so past legislatures, including some of us, have seen fit that because these gaps continue to exist, we allow nonprofits to provide these services and use government funds to pay for them. In this case, we're using the Healthy Futures Fund, which is in large part a fund that is built upon alcohol and tobacco taxes. And so I think this is a very good use of that money that we are taxing to go back to cancer treatment. And of course, we have to continue to do all that we can as a government to prevent cancer in the first place, to ensure that cancer-causing events, or such as radiation exposure, that those be addressed through the U.S. Congress's Radiation Exposure Compensation Program. Guam was one of the few places that was excluded in the most recent amendment of that program, and I can't see any justification for it. Guam was also one of the first places that actually showed evidence of the exposure as downwinders to nuclear testing in the Pacific, and that the science shows exposure to radiation is going to cause cancers for those people who were here on Guam during that period of time. We also have addressed in different periods as to what this Guam Cancer Trust Fund is going to cover, what types of services. And I do agree that we can always take a look at that and hone it down as to where our gaps continue to exist and which services we should prioritize in the absence of those services being provided by any other agency or providers on Guam. But a lot of this is the day-to-day assistance to cancer patients. For example, transportation or managing. Where do they go next? What do they do next with this cancer diagnosis that they have? How do they get daily supplies? How do they get airfare? How do they find the right doctors that are not here on Guam for the particular cancer that they have? Different things like that. How do they talk to someone, and how do their family caregivers also get assistance in taking care of these cancer patients for the duration? All of that is the goal of this Cancer Trust Fund, and I commend the author for wanting to ensure that we're going to get them the money, because they are providing the services. And the more direct the services, I agree that those should be prioritized. The BBMR said in their fiscal note that they had a concern about this would impede their ability to manage the government of Guam funds when our collections were short of projections. So if I could ask the author if she's willing to yield about the new section that's been added in the substitute version. It seems to me that it's intended to, we're going to give them their regular allotment, notwithstanding what collections are. Is that correct? Is that the intent?
Will you yield to the question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that question. As I mentioned earlier on the additional section, it's to ensure that even if the Healthy Futures Fund is tracking lower, that any subsidy for that funding comes from the unobligated excess revenue. Now, $4 million throughout the year, Mr. Speaker, you know that is very minimal on the allotment that comes out. Very, very minimal. We're looking like if there's any shortage, but that amount will come from that excess revenue that's trailing. Now, how much could that be, possibly be? We've estimated that in the event, based on Healthy Futures Funds tracking before, and you're looking at $4 million throughout the whole year, you're looking probably about $30,000, $40,000 taking out from that. But it gives the authority to the administration not to shortchange the Cancer Trust Fund because of the shortage of projected revenues coming into the Healthy Futures Fund. I hope that answers the question. Maybe I kind of made it more confusing, but I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Thank you.
So just Masi for yielding to that question. I think that's consistent with what we have seen the administration's fiscal team do when some of these special funds are short, they cover it with the general fund. And so, especially when we have excess, and up to the amount of $4 million seems very reasonable and the right thing to do. And I want to point out that this is actually, many other agencies have been prioritized to receive their money, notwithstanding what the tracking looks like, including the public defender, including the legislature, the Office of Finance and Budget, the judiciary, the mayor's council, OPA, the AG's office, GMH, GVB, the University of Guam, GCC, the Election Commission, Ancestral Lands, and the Chamorro Land Trust. So I absolutely agree with the sponsor about this is our attempt to address cancer patients, to give them the services that they need, and to shore them up for long-term recovery, survival, and thriving. And so I thank the author again for the bill and all the co-sponsors, and I thank all of those agencies who are providing services, or those nonprofits rather, who are providing services using these Guam Cancer Trust Fund monies, and thank them for their work. And to the Guam cancer patients, just not one of us is not affected by cancer in our families, and we wish you the best, and we want to provide as much as we can here on Guam for you and your recovery. Situs Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, gentleman from Tumuni, sir, you're recognized.
Situs Masi, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues and the people of Guam. I certainly rise in full support of Bill 246-38, and was happy to hear it as well. Mr. Speaker, early on in the battles over the current budget for 2026 and shortly after its passage, along with the oversight chair for health, we had that public hearing up at GMH to discuss the multitude of problems plaguing GMH, and the fact that throughout our fiscal year budget, Mr. Speaker, as well as other individual bills, there have been massive amounts of appropriations to GMH. And I had to declare at that time, and it seems to be a recurring theme now, as the Office of Finance and Budget was discussing with Department of Education a couple of days ago on millions and millions in lapses and in their accounts, especially in this last 7 years, Mr. Speaker. Any pronouncement that there's a fiscal or a cash problem is really almost impossible to believe. It's not a funding problem, Mr. Speaker, and hasn't been. It's an execution problem and a prioritization problem. So this legislation is very critical at this point, particularly given the fact that if a year ago or even a couple of years ago or as early as now, there is woeful inadequate transfer of funds into this account for its very critical purpose, it's really derelict, really, and really inhumane, I think, given the call and what this fund actually does in terms of its critical service that it provides to people who are struggling with their battle with cancer, and the need to avail of many services, not only medical services, but transportation services. As we know, many of these patients will be seeking treatment off island. So for that reason, I agree with the retiring speaker that there are so many funds that we in this legislature have ensured that are not under the control of allotment release and can have their scheduled release over 12 months without interruption. And I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. Once again, it's imperative as we continue to discuss current operations of our government, Mr. Speaker, that we clearly understand that this government continues to collect excess revenues and what this legislature has judiciously and conservatively appropriated to make sure that we have funds available. And for any reason that critical areas or any areas really are not getting their funding, Mr. Speaker, it's just not right. And so I think that this measure, of course, really at the heart of it is to ensure that those in the most need of critical care are not pushed to the side in terms of availability, what this legislature has appropriated. But there's also equally a conversation, Mr. Speaker, that this body needs to continue to hold the executive branch accountable to ensure that not only critical areas, but appropriations that this legislature puts forward are available for agencies who are in need to operate and to provide services to the people of Guam. So I thank the author for the bill, and of course I know that that amendment was discussed during the public hearing, so I'm glad that it made it into the bill and look forward to voting in the affirmative. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the bill as substituted? On the bill, no other senators? Senator Taitigui, you can close, ma'am.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. I look at everyone here today and those who supported this measure, and of course I'm going to add on additional co-sponsors to this, that they're the beacon of hope for our people. Everyone in this body voting on this bill. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, you know, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm one of those happy stories, able to serve our island and advocate for those who are still fighting today. And, you know, I don't say this for sympathy, but as a reminder that there is hope, that every time somebody survives, it's because we got there on time. We were able to assist that family. We were able to give that nonprofit organization who fights every day to help our community fighting this disease. These are real people. Imagine this. You're at an airport heading out, and you see someone in a wheelchair, a family member holding that person's hand, and they have a bandana over his or her head. And you know right off the bat and your heart reaches out to that person, wishing you can do something for them. Or you're at a function and you see a child running around, still have a lot of energy, but knowing that that child is going through chemo. Your heart reaches out again, wishing you can do something. People sitting at hospitals, in restaurants, your family gathering when you find out somebody in your family has cancer and you see them walk into a room and you want to do something to help. Be the beacon of hope. Vote for this bill. And those who are listening today, be the beacon of hope for those continuing to fight, so that one day they can stand here as a survivor and fight for you. And for these reasons, I respectfully ask for your vote for Bill 24636. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also make a motion to add co-sponsors to the bill. Everyone who's sitting here, I think most of everyone here is co-sponsor already. But I'd like to incorporate Senator Duenas, Senator Mantanani, Senator Parkinson. I believe, I think I have Senator Jesse Lujan is already a member, already a sponsor, co-sponsor onto the bill. So I make that motion to include those as co-sponsors.
On the motion to include those members present in the session hall, but not already enumerated as co-sponsors to the bill, that being Senator Sean Gamatato, Senator William Parkinson, Senator Sabrina Salas Matanani. I think just about everybody else here is our and Senator Chris Duenas.
Yes.
And Senator Chris Duenas. On that motion, any objections? Hearing seeing no objection, motion carries. On the motion to move bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I make a motion to place Bill 246-38 COR as substituted onto the floor into the third reading file for voting.
On the motion to place bill number 246-38 COR as substituted on the floor and amended on the floor, because we added the other, okay?
Thank you.
Are there any objections? Hearing no objection, motion carries.
Sijus Masi.
Senator Teddy, you still have the floor, man. Senator Teddy, you still have the floor. 1 minute recess.
Legislators back to session. Senator Taidewi, you're next on Bill 263-38.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that short recess. Mr. Speaker, I move to place Bill 263-38 LS, an act to amend Section 8137B1, 8143, 8146, 8154, and 8157, Article 1, Chapter 8, Title 4 of the Guam Code annotated relative to the defined benefit plan to the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on it.
You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I rise today for your support of Bill 263-38 LS, legislation I introduced to strengthen the long-term stability of the Government of Guam Retirement Fund and to protect the retirement security of our public servants. At its core, this bill is about ensuring that the promises we have made to our retirees and to the employees who are working today with the expectation of retirement tomorrow remains secure. Under current law, the government of Guam must fully pay off the retirement fund's unfunded liability by May 1st, 2033. That deadline was put in place years ago as part of our effort to restore the health of the pension system. And we have made tremendous progress. Today, the retirement fund is stronger than it had been in decades. But as we approach the deadline, the remaining timeline becomes increasingly compressed. If a significant market shutdown were to occur in the years leading up to 2033, the government could face sharp and sudden increases in required contributions in a very short period of time. The type could place serious strain on the government's budget. What this bill does is simple. It allows the remaining balance of the unfunded liability to be paid down through structured, rolling 15-year periods rather than a single compressed deadline. This approach helps smooth the potential volatility while still maintaining strong progress toward full funding. The bill also modernizes certain investment provisions in statute that were written decades ago. These updates allow the fund to diversify in investments more effectively in today's global markets in order to achieve better risk adjustment returns over time. During the public hearing, we heard strong support for this measure from the retirement fund and its board of trustees and its professional advisor, who happened to be on island during that public hearing. The fund's independent actuary confirmed that the bill would enhance contributions rate stability and predictability while maintaining strong funding progress for the system. Senator Barnett asked some really thoughtful questions to determine how these changes how it would affect retirees in their everyday lives. Ricky Hernandez from the Guam Retirement Fund explained, who is a member of the board, explained that the goal is to give the fund the tools to earn strong, steady returns over time. Stronger returns mean a stronger retirement system and greater confidence that the pension promised to retirees will be there when they need them. Senator Gumatauta also raised questions regarding the complexity of the legislation and whether senators should fully understand the mechanics of the bill before advancing it. I appreciate that concern, and that is precisely why the hearing and session process is important. During the hearing, the Retirement Fund provided detailed testimony explaining the statutory amendment in the bill and their purpose, and submitted an actuarial report evaluating the proposal while answering questions from members. I want to take a moment to thank the Guam Retirement Fund, its Board of Trustees, and its staff for working collaboratively with my office to develop this legislation and for providing their expertise throughout the process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I stand ready for any questions my colleagues may have.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. On Bill 263-38, any senators wish to speak on the motion? Senator Gumatauta, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to share some comments regarding Bill 263-38. Based on my exchange with Vice Chairman of the Government of Guam Retirement Fund Board of Trustees, and no stranger to this branch, Dr. Ricky Hernandez, during this bill's public hearing, he noted that the measure will help the Retirement Fund manage the Government of Guam's unfunded liability through additional investment flexibility. I appreciated, and I still do, Dr. Hernandez's summary, that the bill before us is a proactive approach to potential volatility risks, recognizing that this government still has until 2033 2033 to pay off the unfunded liability of the government of Guam Retirement Fund. Dr. Hernandez stated that the ultimate goal of the bill is to ensure that we have the tools that are necessary to improve and get the best risk-adjusted returns for the retirement fund. Mr. Speaker, my observations on Bill 263 extend beyond the proposal as drafted. First, it remains unclear to me how the amendments that this branch of government has made to our retirement statute since 2016 has challenged our ability to settle the unfunded liability and safeguard the contributions of active employees. Second, I am concerned that our predecessors lacked the financial analysis that is expected of the Budget Office before they voted on a policy that the executive at the time cautioned could bankrupt the government by $140 million. This is based on conflicting feedback that BBMR provided several years ago on a policy that expanded retirement policies to an additional group of uniformed law enforcement officers. BBMR considered the policy to be administrative in nature, but the retirement fund declared that any legislation involving the retirement fund remains conditioned on the government's obligation to remit employer contributions to the retirement fund benefit plan at adequate funding levels. Third, Mr. Speaker, I recognize that the retirement contribution rate, which represents the retirement benefit that is provided to each eligible employee, is estimated to be 30.70% for FY 2027. 30.70%. According to BBMR, the approved retirement contribution rate between fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2026 are as follows: 28.43% in FY 2023, 29.43% in FY 24, 30.77% in FY 2025, and 33.85% for FY 2026. Mr. Speaker, together with the government's share for medical and dental insurance and premiums for Medicare and life insurance, the government's retirement contribution rate can represent as much as 30% of an employee's total compensation package. For example, a budget staffer with that same office, a BBMR, with a base salary of $76,093 has a total compensation package of $110,927 a year. This after factoring $26,971 in government-provided benefits. Mr. Speaker, my concern is not with how much our employees are paid. My fear is that when this government is unable to sustain its financial obligations, it will almost certainly rely on higher contribution rates to cover the difference. Mr. Speaker, who pays for that variance? The cost is ultimately shouldered by our public sector employees and those who make up our non-government workforce. Mr. Speaker, I offer these remarks acknowledging that Bill 263 has far-reaching implications not only on current and future budgets and our government's unfunded liability, but on Guam's broader tax base now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you very much. On the bill 263-38, see, gentleman from EPAN, sir, you're recognized.
Buenas noches, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the people of Guam. Thank you for watching on our YouTube stream, Docomo and GTA, and Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the bill. When I attended the public hearing, I asked the good folks from the retirement fund to put this in uncle and auntie terms, because anytime Tanana and Tunpete hear that we're trying to fiddle with the retirement, I think they get more gray hairs. So I was very grateful for the explanations and the answers to my questions, and really the way it was explained in those uncle and auntie terms, and the way it was explained to me was that it's very similar to refinancing your mortgage, as we're looking at a cliff in 2033, and I commend the retirement fund because a lot of times, as my colleagues know, sometimes we get agencies, institutions, entities come to the senators with a bill that they needed yesterday or tomorrow. And so to be able to address this, 7 years ahead of that fiscal cliff, and to also provide the additional flexibility with the investments. And so if you read the transcript or you watch the public hearing, apparently the retirement fund thinks that we're missing out on certain types of investments, and so the bill increases our ability to make foreign investments or invest in foreign companies by some 15%. And when I asked about the opportunities, were we missing opportunities, the response I got was, yes, we're missing a lot of opportunities. So very glad to be able to provide this flexibility to the retirement fund, because ultimately the savings we realize, or the return on investments that we receive, will hopefully, knock on wood, lead to a lower contribution rate for hardworking government employees who have retired or are anticipating retirement. So as the Vice Chair of the Committee on Retirement here at the Legislature, I rise in strong support of the measure and encourage its passage by my colleagues. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill. On the bill. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Dazonia, ma'am, you are recognized.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I'm just trying to reconcile. So we did hear testimony from the retirement fund, its actuary, and its board members, but there was no representative from the fiscal administration's fiscal team. And I'm reading the fiscal note, and it says that the position statement from the retirement fund was not available, and absent detailed information as to the exact financial impact from the retirement fund, the Bureau is unable to provide an estimated cost impact at this time. So they pretty much gave us no information in this fiscal note as to effects on the government of Guam. And I have no objection to their proposed changes to how they invest their money. We have to really trust them, the board, that they are going to make the right decisions on these matters, because they are changing the standards as to that are already in place as to how they're going to invest. It looks to me, and I'm not an expert in this by any means, but we are increasing their ability to invest in certain areas where it was restricted before, and we are increasing their ability to invest in maybe what used to be thought of as more risky investments. But again, in that regard, I will trust the board. The other part of the bill, the beginning of the bill, is really to change the contribution rate of the government of Guam, which affects us very greatly, because that is what we have to take into account when we're making the budget every year for the government of Guam. How much are we going to contribute to the retirement fund for all of the employers to make up for the debt that the retirement fund adopted, or was put on them by the lack of contributions in many, many earlier years. So that debt was supposed to be paid up by 2033, and this bill allows that to be extended the rationale they say is because we might have to pay too much. The government of Guam might have to pay too much to pay that off in the upcoming years with volatility in the market. And of course I'm concerned because when we're so close to meeting that goal, I'm just concerned that we're extending that. And it says we're extending it to allow them, there's no real time period limit anymore. It says it will be amortized over periods of up to 15 years, 15-year periods, not one single period, but up to 15-year periods. They're going to spread out whatever the balance is at that point and try to make it up within 15 years so that they can accommodate the ups and downs. I'm sure this is a benefit to the administration in reducing the amount that is going to have to be paid in as contributions in the next 7 years and spreading that out over 15-year periods. So that's good. The Retirement Fund Board seems to think that, or believe that that will not put the retirement fund itself at any further risk or the retirees. And I think that's really the bottom line. Does this put the retirees at any risk that we will not be able to meet the obligations to those retirees? So they have given us their full assurance, and without any other impact from BBMR, I guess that's what we're going to do, is trust their assurance is that these changes are going to spread out what is due to the retirement fund and still be able to meet the obligations to all of our retirees now and in the future. And again, as I said earlier, without any additional information, I feel like we have to trust them unless we, have any other qualifications on these statements that are being made or have been made. And so I hope that with the information that was provided at the hearing, that BBMR would be able to do its own analysis, but they have not updated their fiscal notes since prior to the public hearing. So that is just a little bit concerning for me. I would like to have the assurance of that team as well as to the impacts on our retirees. But again, we're trusting our board to make these investments as prudently as possible. They are under a fiduciary duty, so I believe that duty really holds them accountable and will hold them accountable so they will make the right decisions. And so I support the author and thank her for the work on this bill and these updates to our retirement funds. Just Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill. On the bill, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill. No other senators? I think you can close now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank the retiring speaker, explaining it a little bit easier for people to understand that, the important to emphasize that this is a new structure that is protected against the risk of sudden spikes, in the contribution rates. The bill, it allows gains and losses to spread out over time instead of being absorbed all at once. This is to make contribution rates more sustainable year to year. Not only does it do that, but it also, goes back to the last time it was updated at the retirement fund on the ability for investment was decades ago. And based on time, the Bitcoin that came out, the use of AI technology, and believe it or not, even in the public hearing, how does AI technology attribute to the retirement fund? It's because the investments they make. And investments, it's not just in the US, but also in European countries as well. I'd like to also thank my co-sponsors on this legislation. Of course, Senator San Agustin, who oversaw retirement for quite some time, and understanding the move to modernize and update the guidelines for the retirement fund. I appreciate his support, as well as Vice Speaker Ada, who as well understands the importance of this cliff that we are approaching. The cost of government, it's going to cost the government of Guam if we do not spread this over time. So that being said, I'd also like to add co-sponsors to the legislation, if I may, Mr. Speaker, before, I guess, yeah, that's my closing, because I had actually something prepared for my closing, but I'll just go straight into amendments and hopefully have the support of my colleagues. So I'd like to make a motion to add co-sponsors to the bill, and that is Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Therese Terlahi. Ma'am. If there's anyone else, Senator Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, Senator Paris, Senator Parkinson, we're good. Senator Lujan, Senator Duenas. Okay, Senator Duenas. So everyone here on is co-sponsors, Mr. Speaker. Everyone who's sitting here, I know the rules. You have to be here. So, okay.
On the motion to
Thank
add
you. Yeah.
Senators Chris Barnett, where is he?
He just stepped out when I mentioned his name.
Okay,
He's about, yes.
Chris Barnett, Therese Terlahi, Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, William A. Parkinson, Jesse Lujan, Chris Duenas,
And yourself, Mr. Speaker.
myself,
Yeah.
Senator Sabina,
Yes, yes.
and Senator Sabina as co-sponsors to the bill. Are there any objections?
And yourself?
I did.
Okay, okay.
And, okay, are there any objections? No objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I motion to place Bill 263-38 onto the third reading file for voting, LS, onto the reading file. Thank you.
On the motion to place Bill 263-38 LS as amended on the floor into the third, she already added you, Chris. Okay, to the third reading file. Okay. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Senator Flores Paris on resolution number 126-38 COR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues. I move to place resolution number 126-38 COR as amended by the author into the third reading file, and I wish to discuss.
You can proceed.
Resolution 126-38 aims to promote the mental wellness of our youth through the reassessment and updating of the Guam Education Board policies to more effectively address both existing and emerging challenges. These include mental health concerns, substance exposure, bullying, cyberbullying, and the impact of excessive smartphone and social media use on learning environments. Nationally, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that 1 in 5 adolescents experience a diagnosable mental health condition. Locally in Guam, the 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey reflects elevated levels of persistent sadness, hopelessness, and suicidal ideation among our students. Suicide remains a critical public health concern, In 2023, Guam recorded 31 suicide deaths, resulting in age-adjusted rate significantly higher than the United States average. Nearly half of suicide deaths over the past decade occurred among individuals under 30 years of age, unlike in the U.S., which is the elderly population. Mental health challenges are further compounded by substance exposure. The Guam State Epidemiological Profile reports that approximately 36% of high school students have been offered, sold, or given illicit drugs on school property. Nationally, fentanyl has emerged as a leading cause of overdose deaths among young people. Electronic nicotine delivery systems, commonly marketed using the industry term vape, remain alarmingly prevalent in Guam. 1 in 3 middle and high school students report current use. Nicotine exposure during adolescence affects brain development, impulse control, and mood regulation. Guam has among the highest youth prevalence rates compared to the states and territories nationwide. The Guam Strategic Action Plan for Substance Misuse Prevention and Mental Health Promotion identifies tobacco use, substance misuse, suicide prevention, and mental health promotion as priority areas requiring coordinated multi-sectoral action. At the same time, digital overexposure is reshaping childhood development. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, children ages 8 to 18 spend an average of 7.5 hours per day on screens, excluding school-related work. Educators report that this level of exposure is affecting attention, engagement, and classroom learning. Phones in Focus, a nonpartisan research initiative supported by the National Governors Association, released preliminary findings from a national survey of more than 20,000 public school educators. The findings suggest that stricter school-wide cell phone policies regulating both when and where students can access phones are associated with reduced in-class phone use and improved teacher satisfaction. And these concerns are echoed at the federal level. The United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation recently held a bipartisan hearing examining children's screen time. Lawmakers raised concerns about algorithm-driven feeds and endless scrolling mechanisms and their impact on youth mental health, social comparison, and prolonged engagement. Internationally, countries are reassessing the role of digital technologies in education. Sweden, after implementing widespread classroom digitization, saw a decline in reading performance and subsequently reinvested in physical textbooks and structured literacy practices. UNESCO has similarly issued guidance calling for the careful evidence-based integration of technology in education, emphasizing that digital tools should support, not replace, foundational learning practices. Cognitive research supports these shifts. Reading on paper improves comprehension and retention. Handwriting strengthens neural pathways associated with memory and learning. And physical books reduce distraction and support sustained attention. Bullying and cyberbullying further intersect with digital overexposure. Online harassment extends beyond school hours, increasing risk of anxiety, depression, substance misuse, and suicidal ideation. During the public hearing on Resolution 126-38, testimony from the Guam Department of Education reinforced both the urgency of these issues and the ongoing efforts to address them. Nicotine use remains consistently among the top 5 behavioral offenses in GDOE schools, with an average of 1,399 infractions during a 5-year period. Additionally, approximately 25% of high school students report current marijuana use, with lifetime use exceeding the U.S. median. GDOE has made significant efforts to implement prevention and intervention programs in partnership with government agencies and community organizations, and these include substance use intervention, brief tobacco and nicotine intervention, and a range of community-based initiatives, such as storytelling for empowerment, positive action, leadership and resiliency programs, and services provided through organizations including WestCare, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and others. The department has expanded its partnerships with law enforcement and community providers to deliver programs such as DARE, Catch My Breath, and Protect Your Game, aimed at preventing substance use and promoting healthy decision-making among youth. School climate and behavioral supports are guided by positive behavioral intervention supports, with 59% of schools meeting the goals of GDOE. In addition, GDOE's Behavioral Health Services provides a multi-tiered system of support, including universal, targeted, and intensive interventions alongside screening tools such as enhancing your mental health state to identify students in need of additional support. Regarding cell phone use, current policy allows individual schools to determine their own approach. Testimony indicated that schools implementing stricter policies, including full bans, have reported positive outcomes here on Guam. Resolution 126-38 builds on these efforts. It empowers the Guam Education Board to intentionally review and strengthen policies that support student wellness, reduce harm from substance use and digital overexposure, and address bullying and cyberbullying. It also calls for establishing a student wellness task force in coordination with public health partners and highlights the need to expand school-based mental health supports and resources. This measure promotes balance, focus, and safety in our schools. It recognizes that technology has a role, but it must not undermine literacy, mental health, or academic engagement. And I ask for my colleagues' support. Situs Masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On resolution number 126-38 COR, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Or on the resolution? On the resolution, are there any senators wishing to speak on the resolution? Gentlelady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Situs Masi, and I stand in support of this resolution. I want to thank the author for her work in regards to student wellness and, of course, early childhood development. And in this case, she's asking that we, the legislature, support the Guam Department of Education's policy to expand anti-drug education and prevention campaigns, to enforce comprehensive cell phone use policies, all in order to promote student wellness and safe learning environments, and that we increase access to mental health supports for students across all grade levels. I'd have to say that since I first became a senator, this has really been an issue with my colleagues to put into place programs that we find would be helpful for these students. And there were different programs along the years that Guam Behavioral Health was recommending, and always with good benefits. So the more programs that the schools and the Department of Education can adopt, the better. I just wanted to point out, when part of this resolution talks about we empower the Department of Education to uniformly enforce its updated policy on student cell phone use, requiring phone-free instructional time, secure storage of devices during class, and annual reporting on disciplinary incidents and learning outcomes associated with policy implementation. And I looked at the board's policy, which says it's been amended August 2025. They actually, the policy says that the use of cell phones by students is a privilege allowed on school campuses within the parameters of this policy. The purpose is to ensure that student possession and use of cellular phones does not interfere with academic instruction, does not disrupt school operations, and its use is not in violation of the law. So the policy says cellular phone use by students is allowed if part of academic instruction and or for students with specific needs that require such devices as per their Individualized Education Program, IEP, or Individualized Health Plan, IHP. And that the superintendent shall develop a standard operating procedures governing the possession and use of cell phones and be in charge of implementation of this policy. And I really think that's kind of been the issue, is that it's been applied differently in different schools with different success. And as she said, as the sponsor said earlier, they have found in some schools great success, improved learning in safer environments, less behavioral issues through use, consistent use of these policies. So again, I just want to thank the author for her work and for empowering DOE and Guam Behavioral Health to continue to work together and provide our students with absolutely all that we can give them. And again, I think in this regard, anti-drug, pro-academics, pro-student wellness in general is very, very important because of the risk that our children are facing today. And all of this is in light of what is going on today. And today, our children are facing, as the sponsor indicated, and as very well indicated, greater risks of drug use at younger ages, greater risks of bullying, cyberbullying, greater risks of suicide and suicidal thoughts. And so it really is a crisis that we need to address. So again, I commend her for her work in this regard, and that we all support this. Cesar Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the resolution, gentleman from Momoto Tumaiti. Sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this resolution because I think that this resolution asks a lot of very important questions about the role of technology when it comes to our children. I am one of the, I think actually am the youngest member of this legislature, and that puts me as part of the millennial cohort. And, you know, one of the things that I always remember as a mark of my generation is, you know, we were kind of the last generation to see the world before social media and widespread internet use. And as somebody who lived through that and saw that there is a definitive change with how technology affects the development of our youth. Widespread internet didn't come until I was well into adulthood and well into having a strong sense of self and sense of identity. So when people say mean and horrible things to me online, I could just delete my accounts and I will be able to move on with my life like nothing's ever happened to me. But that cannot be the same as it is with our children who are growing alongside these technologies and being exposed to them in unregulated ways that we do not fully comprehend how it's affecting their development, how it leads to this increase of suicides and bullying that they might not have otherwise been exposed to without access to these incredibly advanced tools. I mean, think about what a smartphone is. It's basically a repository that has all of human knowledge and connect you to basically the entire world. And what does that do to somebody whose sense of self is not fully developed, who is still trying to figure out who they are when they could be exposed to so many radical ideas? How they could have access to all this knowledge, and some of that knowledge is dangerous. How to build a bomb in your backyard. We see some of these violence in our country having a direct line from school shootings and now online radicalization. And so I do think that we need to give a very strong eye to how we incorporate these technologies into the development of our children. I've seen the disturbing report that Gen Z might be the first generation where we've seen a slip in IQ for the generation. After an upward trend of it always getting better every generation. And that's concerning to me. What are we doing differently that could be leading to some of those problems? And how do we stop it now that we are starting to notice it? How do we reverse that trend? How do we get our children being smarter than all of us? Because that's ultimately we want the generations that come after us to be better in all the ways that we couldn't be. Not worse, but better. And so, whether it be social media or access to smartphones or AI, whatever is causing this trend, we do need to give some serious consideration, because our children should not be the experimental ground for which we test these technologies on our population. Many of these people who are head of social media companies say they wouldn't even give it to their own children. So we should really give pause as to what ages we allow access to that and what it is doing to people's cognitive development. And so I rise in full support of this resolution, and I thank the author for presenting it, and I ask my colleagues to please support it as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the resolution 126-38, gentleman from Mipan, sir, your record.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in strong support of Resolution 126-38. Just some of the numbers that I think justify and validate this resolution. According to the Guam Department of Education, we're seeing an average of about 400 substance-related offenses occurring annually in our public school system, to include about 1,400 nicotine-related violations annually. A large majority of this is through the seizure of vape. And the retiring speaker from Jotnia talked about some of the inconsistency and implementation that's prevented a lot of the programs that GDOE is already doing from being successful. That's one of the reasons why I support the resolution, is because I feel like it levels all of these different ways that we're trying to help our kids, whether it's through cell phone usage. You know, if you read the news, a lot of schools in the States have started outright banning cell phones, period. You know, if you bring it to school, they hold it for the day. A lot of them don't even allow them past the school front gate. And GDOE's policy is a little bit different. You can bring the cell phone to school, and if it's part of the lesson plan, you're allowed to use it. But if it's got nothing to do with the teacher's plan, then you're supposed to have it in your pocket, in your backpack. And I was given the opportunity to speak at John F. Kennedy High School this morning for the sophomore class leadership summit. And it was interesting because the students had gathered, first of all, 6:45 in the morning is too early for our kids to be in school. And that's, again, why we have to end the double sessions. I mean, there's just study after study after study that shows anytime you got kids in a school setting before 8, 9 in the morning, it's just not productive. And so what a lot of these students were doing as they were assembled in the gym getting ready for the leadership summit is, you know, some of them were scrolling the phones. So the aide came out and she did this no phone thing, and they all put them away. And it was a great opportunity to talk to these kids. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about my own kids and how they have also struggled with the smartphones and the, you know, short attention span, because a lot of the content that we see on social media is short form content. And that's part of why, as my good colleague from MTM had talked about, that's part of why we're seeing now these reports about the IQ drop from generation to generation, which I think for some of us who are a little bit older kind of got us scratching our head, because we were always told that the new technology that comes out is going to make our lives easier, when in fact in many ways it's throwing so many problems in front of the adults, but more importantly the kids. So my kids went through the whole phase with the video games, and one thing that's different about the video games, now versus the video games when I was younger, you know, we had Nintendo, was these video games we played, you played them to win, and you win at them. But a lot of the video games that the kids play nowadays, you don't win them. It's the ultimate form of escapism. My son played Red Dead Redemption, and a few months back, you know, we're driving home from school, and he told me, he goes, Dad, I can't believe I spent, I think it was like 2,000 hours on Red Dead Redemption. Like, he was just so filled with regret. And, you know, there were some nights a couple years ago where we'd eat dinner and I'd look around the house and, you know, all of us would be doing this with the phones, you know, not talking to each other. So I kind of made a conscious effort to move away from that and to watch more longer form content. And I'm just proud to say that now my kids are at this point where they do what a lot of us did when we were kids, which is what they call touching grass, right? And so my two sons packed up their PlayStations. My youngest girl never got into the video games. And now we do things like they're really into raising chickens. So instead of, you know, going like this all night, we're out there feeding the birds and, you know, playing with the ducks and stuff. And so I think it's great. And that's really what a lot with this resolution, in my opinion, is going to bring us to, is especially with the anti-drug education. I want to commend DOE for their efforts on that. But, you know, more importantly, I want to commend the Guam Police Department because a couple years ago, they were successful in reinstituting the DARE curriculum in the schools, and it's my understanding that they got it into, I think it was Talafofo Elementary first, and then it's in a bunch of different schools. And GPD with Sergeant Paul Tapao and his little group in the Guam Police Department, they do so much outreach with the kids that's very much aligned with the goals of this resolution, whether it's the fade away from violence, kickball tournament, or the football for schools, where we get a lot of these kids who are low income, at risk, you know, very vulnerable populations. You know, for the first time, being able to play soccer in a world-class facility like the Guam Football Association. So this resolution goes part and parcel with all of the other efforts that we're doing to really protect our youth from the dangers of substance abuse, from the dangers of suicide, which is really heartbreaking because we live in this beautiful, beautiful paradise. And, you know, resolutions like this really show that we're trying to do things to address our kids' mental health. We're trying to do things to address the challenges they face, the temptations they face from substance abuse. But, you know, when you look at the numbers, it's tragic. And I commend the author for her introduction of this. I mean, the good senator for Barragata has just consistently, in the time that I've served with her, just really been at the forefront of pushing efforts with early childhood development, with, you know, promoting literacy and doing things like this resolution, which really provides the support to the Guam Department of Education and the impetus to do better. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we want for our kids, is we want them to be able to do better. We want to create a Guam that, first of all, they don't have to leave to seek better opportunity, and second of all, a Guam that they actually want to stay in and live their lives in. And I think that this resolution goes a long way. It's a critical step in achieving that, you know, dream for our kids, you know, para y famagonta. So, Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and again, I just want to commend Senator Perez for her great work on this resolution. She's also got another one that is pretty much in line with this, and I just ask my colleagues for their support on it. Thank you.
Thank you. On the resolution, the gentlelady from Agate, ma'am, be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in support of this resolution by Senator Sabina. But I also hope that in the future we take it a step further by introducing legislation, which I plan on doing in the next few days. I recently attended and participated in the Youth Leadership Summit at the Guam Museum next door. And the kids there, they also mentioned mental health and their well-being, and what are we going to do about it. And so I actually have been in communication with the Guam Department of Education regarding the situation that they are confronted with. And just so that there's a little bit more perspective to what the need for this resolution as well as the legislation, the Guam Department of Education currently employs 6 psychologists serving 23,000 students in the district. 1 psychologist for special education, serving 2,000 students. The other 5 district psychologists to student ratio is 1 to 4,600, and the National School Psychologists Association recommends 1 per 600 for quality care. So that, again, gives you kind of perspective as to why this resolution is important and the legislation that I will be introducing. So again, I support this, and I hope to get the same support when I introduce my bill later this week. Thank you.
Thank you. On the resolution, gentleman from Jigo, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to thank the author of the resolution for this resolution. For some of you, in 2007, when I was on the Board of Education, the cell phone came on. And some of you were probably still in high school or middle school 18 years ago. Everything has evolved. And I thank the author because the resolution addresses issues that were being addressed by the board then. But now we got DOE more involved. Public health and the other agencies are getting more involved, and the other education institutions getting involved. And you know, I have to admit that social promotion, involvement with pregnancy at the student level, more involvement of the teachers, that's the key. And I honestly believe that DOE is on the right track. I just hope they continue on that track because they've got a lot of, still a long way to go. Because like I said, I was on the board in 2007, and we were tracking that with the cell phone, tracking with the social promotion, and a lot of stuff that she addressed. And when I read her resolution, I said, holy, she's hitting it on the dot. And I thank you, Senator Parrish, for your resolution. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the resolution, Vice Speaker, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I stand in full support of Resolution 127-38 COR, and I thank the author, Senator Parrish, for adding me as a co-sponsor. It's so brings back a lot of memories going back to school and being a student parent myself. Both my girlfriend and I, we were students. She got pregnant. And it was hard trying to figure out your education while being a parent. And the support back then was you try to figure it out yourself. You try to figure out how to manage your education and be a parent at the same time. The times have really changed over the days, and this is what we need to do, is we need to give that type of support to those teenagers. And it's very fortunate because my girlfriend then is my wife of 40 years. And we come a long way in ensuring that our children get the education that they need. We didn't let our youthfulness be a hindrance into trying to raise a family and getting an education at the same time. And we were just 15 when she got pregnant. Had to figure out life really, really quick. By 18, I was already in the military. So we were very young parents, figuring out life. But we were just fortunate that though the system was not set up for student parents, our family support was very instrumental into the success of us completing high school and becoming parents, and then setting off on a journey in the military. The importance of this resolution signifies that we understand and we want to be able to help students achieve that. Don't let because you're pregnant be a hindrance into you completing your education. It's difficult. It's going to be a struggle, but it's going to be well worth the work to complete your education. And that's why, to this day, we always push on to our children that your education is very important. We're blessed with all 4 of our children completing high school and going to college. 3 of them have already graduated, and our fourth child will be graduating in May. So it's how you take the lemons and you squeeze them and you make lemonade to make life better. And that's why I always try to emphasize that, yes, times are hard and things are hard, but if we just have the support of each other and we try to look at always the greater good and the greater what life has to offer, then perhaps, we can all try to live a better life and be productive, not just for yourselves, but to help one another. There's enough struggles and challenges, and sometimes just that one ear that opens could be that individual that makes a difference in someone's life. So thank you, Senator Parrish, for introducing this resolution, and I stand in full support, and I ask my colleagues to support this resolution as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On Resolution 126-38, any other senators wishing to speak on the resolution? No other senators? Senator Parrish, you can close on your...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleagues for their heartfelt words and their support for this really important resolution. And I also look forward to any measures that can come out with this and any future work on policies that address the crises facing our youth and families, and to support GDOE and their partners, both government and community ones. So Resolution 126-38 affirms student wellness and academic achievement are inseparable. Research consistently demonstrates that reducing digital distractions, strengthening prevention efforts, and expanding mental health services improve attendance, focus, and learning outcomes. Guam's own data underscores the urgency of this work. 1 in 3 middle and high school students report current use of electronic nicotine delivery systems, and more than 1/3 of high school students report being offered, sold, or given illicit drugs on school property. Suicide rates in Guam remain significantly higher than the U.S., and these realities intersect with rising screen exposure, bullying, mental health challenges that directly affect the school climate and student engagement. Testimony from the public health leaders and educators reinforce that schools are critical settings for prevention and early intervention, and that sustained collaboration between education and behavioral health systems is essential for long-term success. The Guam Strategic Action Plan for Substance Misuse Prevention and Mental Health Promotion emphasizes coordinated, multi-sectoral approaches grounded in the local epidemiological data. The experiences of other nations, the bipartisan concerns raised in the United States Senate regarding youth screen exposure, and the growing body of cognitive research all point toward the same conclusion. Stricter school-wide phone policies are associated with improved classroom outcomes. Excessive digital saturation impairs focus and literacy development. Balance matters. Structured instructional environments matter. Student well-being matters. By empowering the Guam Education Board to implement evidence-based policies, enforce comprehensive phone-free instructional time, expand prevention education, addressing fentanyl electronic nicotine delivery systems, strengthen mental health supports, and deepen coordination with public health partners. This resolution supports safe, focused, and sustainable learning environments for all students. and I ask for my colleagues' support. Before I end, I would like to add co-sponsors that are not already on the bill. Everyone present today, if they so choose. So Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani, Senator Lujan, Senator Joseph Augustine, and Senator Sean Gumatauto. And with that, I would like to place, let's dispense with that.
Let's dispense first of the, okay, motion to add co-sponsors, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani, Senator Jesse Lujan, Senator Joseph Augustine, Senator Sean Gumatauto. Okay. No objections, so ordered.
And I'd like to motion to place Resolution 126-38 as amended into the third reading file.
On that motion to place Resolution 126-38 COR as amended by the author and further amended on the floor into the third reading, there better not be any objection. No objection? So ordered. Now you can go to 127. I'm just expressing my view.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead,
So
Beth.
at
You
this
can
time, I would like to place, motion to place Resolution 127-38 COR as amended into the third reading file, and I wish to discuss.
start. You can proceed, ma'am.
So Resolution 127-38 recognizes that educational equity in the modern era requires thoughtful, coordinated action across multiple fronts. This measure addresses three interconnected priorities: strengthening support for pregnant and parenting students, establishing responsible frameworks for artificial intelligence in education, and mitigating social promotion through evidence-based intervention. First, Guam continues to experience higher rates of teenage pregnancy compared to the national average. The Department of Public Health and Social Services reports that thousands of young mothers, infants, and children are served annually through the maternal and child health programs. Pregnant and parenting students can often face stigma, childcare challenges, and disruptions to their academic progress. Research demonstrates that school-based dual-generation models that integrate childcare, parenting education, and literacy support can significantly improve graduation outcomes while promoting healthy early childhood development. Early literacy remains one of the strongest predictors of long-term academic success, and strengthening early child literacy alongside parenting support advances intergenerational educational equity. The second component of this resolution addresses the rapid emergence of artificial intelligence in education. AI technologies are increasingly embedded in learning platforms, research tools, and conversational systems. While these tools offer opportunities, they present risks that require proactive governance. Resolution 127-38 does not seek to prohibit AI. Instead, it encourages the Guam Department of Education to develop policies that guide its responsible, equitable, and transparent use while also supporting age-appropriate instruction that ensures students understand how AI works, its application, limitations, and broader social impacts. The third component of this resolution addresses social promotion. Advancing students without mastery risks compounding learning gaps, while retention alone is not an effective solution. Evidence-based approaches emphasizes early identification, targeted intervention, and multi-tiered supports to ensure students meet essential learning standards. Resolution 127 received support from all those who testified. The Guam Department of Education testified that the resolution reflects a forward-thinking and student-centered approach highlighting a dual-generation strategy that promotes early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum, implements targeted interventions and data-driven instruction to mitigate social promotion, and examines the role of AI through clear policy development. The University of Guam also expressed strong support and identified opportunities for collaboration in advancing this work. Testimony from the UOG President, Anita Enriquez, emphasized the importance of culturally responsive, developmentally appropriate, and trauma-informed approaches for pregnant and parenting students. The university also highlighted the need for clearer definitions of artificial intelligence, safeguards around data privacy and equity, and professional development for educators. In addition, UOG identified opportunities to support curriculum development, educator training, tutoring partnerships, and program evaluation to strengthen implementation and long-term outcomes. Together, these components advance educational equity by supporting vulnerable student populations, ensuring responsible technology integration, and strengthening standards-based promotion policies. And I ask for my colleagues' support on this resolution. Suzu's Masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the resolution number 127-38 COR, Mr. Vice Speaker, would you like just to append your testimony from the previous resolution?
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker, but I still stand in full support of
Understood.
Resolution 126 as well.
You can proceed, sir.
Thank you. You know, this just goes to show the importance, right, of what we're doing for our children, especially in these days and times that we need to continue to help support them, whether it be through student parenting or whether it, you know, how is it that we get them through high school? And, you know, we've seen it time and time again about social promotion, and it does not do anything for the individual, the student, in achieving their goals in life. You know, when I graduated high school, it was not through any social promotion. And like I said earlier, when we were student parents, I had the option to complete my education, and that was through adult night school at the Guam Community College. That didn't stop me from achieving my goals in life and moving forward and joining the military, becoming an aircraft structural repairer. So these are things that, you know, we can see that it's possible without being socially promoted, without the hindrance of whether you're a student parent or whatever obstacles may come in your life. Always know that there's a brighter light at the end of that tunnel, and that you can achieve the dreams that you do and the goals that you want to set for yourselves. You just have to have your mind set to it. And again, I'd like to thank the author of the resolution, Senator Perez, for introducing this and also adding me as a co-sponsor. So again, Mr. Speaker, I stand in full support of Resolution 127-38, and I ask my colleagues to support as well.
Thank you very much, sir. On the resolution 127, gentleman from Talafo, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to offer brief remarks regarding Resolution 127, particularly as the measure attempts to address the subject of social promotion. Through the resolution's public hearing, this body received testimony describing social promotion as a kind way of making students not feel bad because you don't want them to fail. And as a consequence, students are given a high school diploma that really doesn't qualify them to knock on the door of greater opportunities either at college or university or community college or some high technology education. I wanted to point out, Mr. Speaker, GPD disclosed during a 2024 legislative oversight hearing that although more than 200 individuals took its entry-level exam, only 78 people qualified to move forward to the interview phase. And of those 78 individuals, only 30 qualified to become police recruits following interviews and background checks. Mr. Speaker, in August of 2025, GPD announced, together with Teads High School, the establishment of a partnership involving 20 10th grade students in a 3-year criminal justice program. According to the police chief, one of the key drivers behind the initiative is GPD's struggle to recruit qualified applicants, recognizing that many high school graduates fail to pass the department's entry-level written exam. Mr. Speaker, because of a number of us in this hall and throughout our community might be convinced that DOE has staffing levels, mandates, federal programs, and facilities too large for a single agency to handle, perhaps Resolution 127, if approved, can help policymakers at all levels decide whether the organization as it is today should in fact be reimagined. And through that process, we can all help determine if taxpayer resources, $240 million from the general fund, and millions more through special funds and separate appropriations for bond and leaseback payments, are truly helping our children prepare for life beyond the classroom. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the time to speak on Resolution 127 and the broader subject of taxpayer investment into our public school system.
Thank you, sir. On the resolution, on 127-38 COR, any other senators wishing to speak on the resolution? Gentleman from Momototo Maiti, you recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise in support of this resolution, where I think the resolution is particularly strong in its foresight, is in its direction to take a good strong look at artificial intelligence and how it's incorporated. Because I don't know about everybody else here, but has anyone tried to use artificial intelligence? The conversations you can have with it, the things you can learn with it. It is truly incredible, this technology that we have before our fingertips. But I also know that in some circles, this is being talked about like the nuclear weapon of our generation. Countries are racing to be the first one to develop this technology because they believe it will give them an insurmountable advantage during wartime. And if we are at the highest levels looking at this as a significant technology in that capacity, maybe it should give us pause that we can basically have all of our children have access to it for free if they have a smartphone or a computer. We've seen disturbing stories of people going through a type of artificial intelligence psychosis where they commit violence or commit suicide after extensive conversations with artificial intelligence. This is a new technology that I don't think anybody truly understands. And we are just haphazardly giving access to our children. And I'm not necessarily sure that that is the wisest course of action. Nor am I sure on what the right answer is moving forward on how to regulate this technology, if it should be regulated at all. And so there is a lot of questions. I myself, I personally view artificial intelligence as an incredible force multiplier for the capabilities of an individual. But I also see, and there's evidence from studies that bear this out, that it stunts a person's development from learning critical skills in ways that make the stunting of development we see from smartphones and the like pale in comparison. And so I don't know how we move forward on artificial intelligence. This is kind of Pandora opening the box. But it is a technology that gives me a lot of pause because it is changing society very rapidly. It's threatening to undo a lot of entry-level positions for a lot of industries. How does one become a senior manager with all this experience if there are no junior manager jobs? How does an entry-level accountant become a senior-level accountant if entry-level accountant jobs are disappeared as well? How are children supposed to engage their critical thinking skills if a machine can answer all of their questions at the press of a few fingertips? These are all way more complicated questions than I ever thought I would have to deal with as a legislature, but here we are. And so I commend the author for this resolution to get everybody on the same page that these changes in society are something that we are going to look at together and find the best answer regardless of where that answer leads. Because I don't know. And I think that's really the most honest answer I could give regarding some of these advanced technologies is I don't know what they're doing to our children, to our job markets, to our society, to our environments. These AI centers did not just appear out of thin air. That's data centers all over our country. That could be a data center on Guam someday. That could be a data center in our neighboring islands. And what does that do to water sources and the environment around it? So none of these questions are in a vacuum. They're all connected in a very complex interplay. But the simple truth is we need to look out for the children and figure out what these technologies are doing to them and making sure that it is a net benefit and not a net negative. Because we build these technologies to help us. And for most of my life, I have seen the upward trajectory where more technology has always equaled better outcomes. But in the last few years, I'm starting to question that foundational belief that maybe sometimes less is more. As one of my colleagues said earlier, you know, him and his children go outside and touch grass. And I think that there is a lot of value to that. I think there's a lot of value to having community. I remember what it was like having community around video games. You know, these games were not online. We had to play them in a room together. But now, a kid could spend hours online, all by himself with nobody in the room with him. Yeah, they got people in the digital spaces, but I think there's something lost when we no longer have that human touch between us. And so I thank the author for this resolution once again, and I ask my colleagues to please support, and let's give these real powerful technologies some real thought on how we incorporate them, especially when our children are still developing. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On the resolution, are there any senators wishing to speak? Gentleman from Jigo, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd like to thank the author. You know, like I mentioned earlier on the last resolution, everything is evolving. And when we say AI, let's get it, like she mentioned on the resolution, DOE's got to be in charge, be better equipped to do what they need to do, to make sure it doesn't become an I. Just keep it as the word AI, and then we'll be okay. And with that, I'd like to support I support the resolution, and thank you, and I thank the author for her resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir. On the resolution, gentleman from Tumuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of this resolution. I think the good author of this resolution understands what is going on in the world that's growing so quickly. And of course, AI technology is even moving into where we're going to be stop saying AI and say AGI. You know, that's the next phase. You know, this is moving at such a high rate. And I'd like to thank the author of that's AI is artificial general intelligence, meaning this is an AI prediction. This means that it's not just, you know, Chat GPT. It's not just, you know, things that we get on the website really quick. This is intelligence that goes even beyond our intelligence. So that's the next program that's coming in. I mean, embracing AI, yes, we should. We will be left behind if we don't. But we also be very cautious about AI too as well. How do we integrate it into the workplace? And I want to thank Senator Perez for actually asking to be on one of the AI task force subcommittees that we put together last week. It was very, very well received. We're still getting calls today of people who want to be part of the subcommittees on the AI task force, which there are 7. And of the AI task force, education, AI education, and social media is one of the subcommittees in which Senator Paris will be sitting on. And I can guarantee you that whatever is happening in the school, whether it's at elementary level, at the college level, that this is all going to combine together in what we can do to protect our children, as well as to embrace what AI can do to advance our children too, as well. AI is such an integration of all technology. You're looking at not just at school, but you're also looking at workforce development in the workplace. You're looking at guidelines for infrastructure. You're looking at cybersecurity and data policy protections. There are areas of human resources, predictive policy profiling based on algorithms. Wow, that's a mouthful right there. But it all boils down to how are we going to get AI to work for us? And I believe that this resolution that's been proffered is going to ensure that whatever the discovery that's happening on an education level, these requirements to oversee, to provide information, to place in areas like the subcommittee on education for AI technology. So it's amazing how quickly, and even today, it's going to change to something else. So it's important to stay on top of it as fast as it's growing. And I ask that the sponsor also include me as a co-sponsor to the resolution, if she can, and stand in full support of this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the resolution, are there any senators wishing to speak on the resolution? Gentlelady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and thanks again to the author for this resolution. And I note that this resolution is actually a very formal, yet it's a request to DOE that they are going to implement on a consistent school-wide basis policies, as some of my colleagues have said, will affect the success of our children, our students in their lives in the long term. And these policies have to evolve quickly. Thus, the resolution urging GDOE to act in this regard because of the very quick changes that are happening in the world today. And the resolution is based on the evidence, including Guam's higher rates of teenage pregnancy than the United States national average, which create barriers to school completion, long-term economic stability, early literacy development among children born to young parents. It's also based on studies that the student parents can significantly improve graduation rates, promote healthy child development, and break intergenerational cycles of poverty with the assistance that is outlined in this resolution, including child care, counseling to make sure that they can meet their education goals and graduation and to complete their education. The resolution asks GDOE to set up a curriculum for these pregnant and parenting students to implement early childhood literacy. And that we have seen in the previous bill from the same author, Senator Paris. Early childhood literacy is the key to the long-term survival, I mean, not survival, but the long-term prosperity of our students. That is the key to changing entire generations of poverty and bringing families out of poverty. It is the key to increasing our students' abilities after graduation to meet changes in life, changes in the world, to use their education in critical, changing ways so that they can succeed no matter what the world throws at them. She talks about social promotion and urges a framework. They talk about the benefits or the reasons why it is a thing at all, and how to create a consistent framework to reduce social promotion and actually increase real promotion by identifying the struggling students early, providing timely academic and counseling supports, using multiple measures to determine readiness for promotion, and getting them there. The resolution also urges DOE to establish additional remedial support such as tutoring, summer learning, and parental involvement before the decision on promotion or retention is made. In other words, address these problems in advance before that's the only decision left. And of course, as many of my colleagues have talked about, the AI. The GDOE must address AI and how we are going to make sure to continue that AI tools align with Guam's educational goals, protect student privacy, advance access to these emerging technologies, but with the safety of students in mind. But I really commend the author of the resolution for acknowledging and respecting that we have an elected school board, and it's up to them to make these policies, and that we are here to support them, and that we can say you must do these things, but they have such a magnitude of mandates on them right now. I think it's up to them to prioritize what they're going to do, and this resolution says we are seeing from our angle that these should be the priority, that we must take care of these things. We do not want to be the nation's #1 rate of teenage pregnancy or low graduation rates. We don't want our children to come out of high school with levels that do not allow them to compete or to succeed and to thrive. So I think we are again, by this resolution, urging GDOE to act quickly, to act and know that when they act, they have our support and they have our consensus. And I think that's what we need to build here, is a community consensus in this regard, and a consensus that for all of these issues, action is urgent. And so I do hope that they will be able to address this urgently. And I know that they have their hands full with a new transition, with a new superintendent and a new management team, but I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I have confidence that they will address these, because I think all educators are dealing with this right now, and all educators want these things, these policies, to be implemented consistently throughout the schools. These policies, if they are proven to support the students, to be implemented, period. So again, Si Diyos Masi to the sponsor, all the sponsors, and to GDOE for the work that it is doing in this regard, and that we support you to implement this consistently throughout, and in whatever needs it will take to get to the levels recommended in this resolution. Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the resolution, are there any senators wishing to speak on the resolution? Gentleman from Ipan, sir, you recognize.
Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the resolution, and I'll make it short because I feel that lunch hour, you're about to recess. But rise in strong support of resolution number 127-38. And again, I just have to commend the author for not just this resolution, but the one we discussed previously, because she's kind of like getting everything in there. And I just want to go down the line. I support the resolution because when my mom was in high school, she got pregnant with me. She delivered me when she was just 16 years old, and she never went back to the classroom. And so I think if we have these opportunities for students who become pregnant because we have these higher rates of teen pregnancy, or we have a curriculum that helps students with parenting, I think that's important, and hopefully it'll keep more students in the classroom because of the availability of this kind of curriculum. Because, you know, all too often, a lot of times when we see these teen pregnancies, it's the extended family that steps up to offer that guidance, and a lot of times even to just pokusai the kids who are born. So I support the resolution because of that, and also because of what it says about breaking intergenerational cycles of poverty. So, and I'll just use myself as an example. My mom gave birth to me when she was 16. I didn't know my father. You know, they split when I was probably 1 year old. And so I was raised by a single mother. And when I was in high school, I was a naughty student. I was agagwat. I completed freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then when I was thinking I was going to graduate, they came back and basically said that I didn't have enough credits from 10th grade, so they were trying to send me back to 10th grade, which was something I just couldn't do because I needed to go get a job so that I could help my mom put food on the table for my brother and sister. And so anything we can do as a body to stave off this intergenerational cycle of poverty, which also stems from decolonization. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to address it within our education system. And then, you know, I don't want to rehash a lot of the discussion on the AI. I think my colleague from Tamuning and my colleague from MTM raised a lot of good points about how AI is going to basically erase a lot of jobs, entry-level jobs. And so there's a big concern about, you know, these pipelines we try to create as policymakers, you know, career pipelines, whether it's trades, different types of fields. And I think that AI really warrants us to kind of go back to the drawing board and to really promote hands-on jobs that AI can't replace, you know, whether it's electricians, plumbers, you know, things with the trades. But I wanted to kind of speak on what I know of AI and its impact to the Guam Department of Education is in talking to different teachers who say that students' use of AI, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever the different apps are, is a pretty real problem in the schools. And as my colleague from MTM had said, you know, if you're just receiving a fully formed paper, you know, spewed out by AI, then, you know, newsflash, you're not learning everything that it takes from beginning to end. And in everything that we do, there's an opportunity to learn at each step along the way. And so when I hear from these teachers, they're actually able to tell which papers are used with artificial intelligence. And it kind of cracks me up because they also tell me that, you know, when they watch the sessions, they're very aware that a bunch of the colleagues in here use AI to draft their comments, which I'm not making a judgment on. I write my own stuff, and I understand, you know, the use of technology and the tools. But just to put that on the record, I guess there's ways you can tell when stuff is written by AI, and that is definitely going to contribute to the learning loss. Hopefully not in the people's house, but definitely contributes to the learning loss that we see in the public school system. And lastly, I support the resolution because it attempts to strengthen supports to mitigate social promotion. My colleague from Talafofo had talked about a recurring problem with GPD, and it isn't just happening in 2024, it's happening right here in 2026. And it's not just the Guam Police Department that's having a hard time finding applicants who can pass. And we're not talking about a Harvard entry exam. We're talking about a simple high school equivalency test that these applicants take to get into, any type of law enforcement. And I got to tell you, when I talk to the teachers, a lot of it is directly related to social promotion, which became very, very prevalent during the pandemic. So, as you know, Mr. Speaker, if you socially promote someone in the 9th grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade, and then, they graduate based on social promotion, or there's any type, the learning loss, it just accumulates. And so we end up having graduates of the public school system who can't pass that simple high school equivalency test. And I've seen it, firsthand. When I was on the radio station, we had this program, and this is University of Guam level. We had this program where we would get interns from the schools of communications, and the first thing I would ask these interns to do is I'd ask them to write, a 500-word essay on why you want to work in radio or the media. And the eagerness was there, the intent was there, but just the ability to put thoughts together in a 500-word essay, I think was a challenge. And I'm not, saying any of those specific individuals, it was a result of the learning loss, but, like I said, this thing just accumulates and accumulates. And so you end up sometimes turning out students who have been socially promoted for multiple grades. And, then when they sit down and try and pass an equivalency test, it's simply, they're just not capable of doing it. And so I think that is actually an elephant in the room for the Guam Department of Education. It's an issue that they've been reluctant to address because, the reason why we're promoting these kids is so that they can feel like they belong socially. And that's very important relative to their mental health, which we're also trying to address. So these are very complex issues that a lot of times, and just reading some of the work from the good senator from Barragata, very intelligent, very thoughtful, very deliberate, and sometimes, quite frankly, very hard to stand up and talk about because they're very complex issues. But, if we don't take steps to address these complex issues, then the simple truth is the problems are only going to get worse. So again, Mr. Speaker, Sidus Masi, for the opportunity to rise in support of Resolution 127-38.
Thank you for that short presentation. Any other senators wishing to speak on the resolution? Any other senators wishing to speak? No other senators? Senator Paris, you can close, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I close, I'd like to add co-sponsors.
Sure.
So anyone present, unless they choose not to. So we have Senator Tadigwe, I know it asked. Everyone else, I think Senator San Agustin, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani. I believe everyone else is on as a co-sponsor.
On the motion to add co-sponsors, Senator Tadigwe, Senator Salas-Matanani, and Senator San Agustin as co-sponsors to the resolution. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered.
So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do appreciate a lot of the comments provided during this debate. And really the intention behind these resolutions was, being an educator myself, I saw firsthand the challenges that our youth face, our teachers face. And a lot of this has been a chronic issue. And really it's about empowering the Guam Education Board to be agents of change. They have the power to impact 23,000 students and their families in developing intentional policies that address these chronic issues as well as emerging ones. It's really telling in regards to AI that the pioneer himself, Jeffrey Hinton, he warned of the concern, he expressed concern about the direction and the pace at which AI is developing. And I think we should heed that concern regarding AI development. We're already I'm hearing anecdotal stories that students are relying on AI for their thinking. And to me, that is a huge concern. We really, that highlights that we really need to double down on critical thinking within our school system. The other thing regarding social promotion. So back in the day after World War II, so this was testified during the public hearing, after World War II, social promotion was a policy used to produce workers. So they advance students so they can work in factories. And so, as we know, things have changed dramatically, economically speaking, where we're looking at more technology jobs, more, jobs that require training. And so this policy of social promotion really needs to be addressed. And there is a way to do it. And so there are interventions. So, of course, the work that I've been doing is to promote early child literacy before a student ever sets into the classroom, because we already know that literate poor households are already behind. The children coming from literate poor households are already behind. It's called the 30 million word gap. And so, of course, encouraging parents. So that's the beauty of this particular resolution, is that we have a captive audience for students that are parent students, that they can pass on the literacy best practices. And it's really mostly about conversational turns. A lot of it has to do with conversational turns, and not putting a screen in front of a child, because that also is not advised by doctors as well. It really delays their development. And so just promoting these best practices in addition to developing parenting curriculum can really uplift the students. And in regards to social promotion, it also is tied to literacy development. So a lot of the students that are having trouble, that come from these literate poor households, basically have tier one. It's called tier one literacy, where they can communicate. But when it comes to the classroom, they have to be adept at the tier 2 level. And so there are interventions available. And it's my hope through this resolution that we're raising awareness with the Guam Education Board to really, or even within the school system, to advocate and to implement consistently these interventions, as well as these other tools or other ways to address AI, I would say, dependence. Ultimately, to me, the goal of education, right, is self-actualization. I think is one of the goals of education, is that we want students to achieve their potential, right? That's the goal. And if we address these, this resolution addresses these concerns head on, to allow self-actualization to occur. And, we expect that from our students. We expect learning, and I also expect the board to engage in this continual assessment of their policies and how they can do better, because their intentional development of policies can have immediate impact. We know GDOE already has policies and a framework in place. It's a matter of complementing that and building upon that. And that's what this is about. And we've already heard testimony from EOG. They're ready to help and collaborate. And so I think we as a body too has stated that we are here to support. And what we need is leadership to really develop those policies so we can integrate our supports. So I thank my colleagues for their support on this resolution. I look forward to further collaboration with the Guam Department of Education and all community partners, Department of Public Health, Guam Behavioral Health, UOG, and all those that are interested in improving education on our island, which ultimately benefits our society. And so with that, I would like to place Resolution 127-38 as amended into the third reading file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Any objections? Okay, no objections, so ordered. It is now 11:45. Let's go ahead and take a lunch break, come back at 2, and when we come back, Senator Parkinson, you will be up. You're next on deck. All right? So, okay, recess until 2 p.m.